What's up, everybody? This is Info Media Reacts. I'm back at it again. This one's going to be another good one. Now, as you already know, Kamala Harris, some people like her, some people hate her, some people, it just depends on who you talk to and how you feel. So politics is a dirty game. And of course, Biden has dropped out and Kamala Harris looks to be that she's going to get the nomination from the delegates to be the prominent individual to run for president against Donald Trump. Now, I want you on this video, this time around, I want you to leave your comments and give your personal opinion about how you see Kamala Harris. A lot of black men, whether it be on social media, on the YouTube streets, wherever you go, black men have their opinions of her. And there have been rumors and talk about how she was as a prosecutor in California, particularly in San Francisco. And then when she became the attorney general of California as it relates to the prison system. Now, I want to say something to you all because I have experience within that system. I deal in that system as a therapist. The prison system in California is not necessarily under the control of an attorney general of California. It's a complete separate department with various bureaucracies and various layers of higher ups and what have you.
Tell the truth.
And I will be showing you a video of a sister by the name of Reese who has a podcast. She's been on Roland Martin. She's going to break down exactly how things worked with black men, and particularly in California, that were incarcerated. Now, she's going to say this, and I'm going to tell you right now, it is true that 93% of the majority of black men that are in California prisons are not there just for marijuana, because I know there was a big issue around Kamala Harris incarcerating black men for marijuana when she admitted herself on a podcast that she smoked marijuana herself. Isn't that crazy? And then her father, who is Jamaican, came out and said he was embarrassed by what she said because he said that Jamaica is not just about marijuana. And of course, we never really hear too much about her father. We know she has a Jamaican father, but we don't really see him. You don't see many photos. I find that kind of interesting and really weird. So what I want to do, because DL Hughley, the comedian, who has been one of her biggest critics, one of her biggest critics over the years when he has exposed things that she has done or that people believe that she has done when it comes to black men in her philosophy as a prosecutor in California. Another area that people were concerned of is about her truancy laws, in which parents could be arrested for their child not going to school. Now, there was a young woman who had a child who had some health problems, who has come out and spoken out over the last few years and has said that Kamala Harris's office, her as a prosecutor, she was very harsh on her because she's claiming that her child was not in school, not because she didn't go to school, because she had health problems. That was a whole nother issue that came out in a wash down the line. But let's get over to DL Hughley right now. Comedian DL. And I want to know y'all opinions again about this woman, Kamala Harris, the vice president. Is she deserving of our vote? This is one thing that's important to me, everybody, is that no politician should get your vote if they don't tell you what they're going to do for you. That's Democrats. That's the Republicans. That's anybody. You don't just vote for someone because you get caught up in the symbolism, but you should vote because they're telling you what they're going to do for you. And so DL has had a coming to Jesus and has changed his mind about her. And I want you to watch this clip from his radio show and give me your opinion. If you agree with DL, do you think DL is just out of his mind? Is he wrong? Should he stick to his guns on this woman? A lot of people are caught up in the hype, because the hype and the excitement, because she was able to raise,
tell the truth,
this woman was able to raise, what was it, $81 million, something of that nature, Let me go into the reaction studio right now, and let's get at it right now, y'all. Let's go for it. So as I said before, she was able to raise $81 million within 24 hours of all this excitement surrounding her, right? And you've got what, white guys for Kamala Harris. You got black men for Kamala Harris. You had, of course, black women for Kamala Harris. Now Latinos for Kamala Harris. A whole host of people that are organically gravitating towards her campaign because, quite frankly, the Democrats feel excited right now that they've gotten Joe Biden. They put sleepy Joe Biden, or Jim Crow Biden, to sleep.
Tell the truth.
So, but I have to admit that Kamala Harris is a polarizing figure. Like I said, people have all sort of opinions about her. But the one thing, whether you like her or not, that is evident is that the Republicans are throwing some racial and stereotypical tropes at her, saying that she's a product of DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's what it stands for. And they're throwing a lot of racial, tropes at her. Kamala Harris already faces racism and sexism from Trump and the Republicans. And I'm not surprised that that's happening. But with all that happening, how does the black community really feel about Kamala Harris when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it? All right, there's some that don't believe that she's really black. We know that she has Irish, Jamaican heritage, and her mother is Roman Indian, which is a real high class in India. Her father, I believe, was a professor at Stanford. Her mother also was a professional. She said against Joe Biden when they were going after each other during the last primary a few years ago before Joe Biden became president, she said that, hey, I was that little girl that was bused to a school in Berkeley. But she kind of didn't tell the truth there, because the school that she was bused to, I worked there before. It's Berkeley High School, and Berkeley is one of the most liberal cities in America, if not the most liberal city in this whole country. And that school was already integrated with other people of other races. Then she lived in Oakland. She went to law school in the Oakland area, San Francisco, Oakland area, and what have you. Now, keep this in mind. Just because people have a skin tone, melanin in their skin, doesn't necessarily mean that they're black. People can have your skin tone, but I'm more concerned about what is their mindset. Do they have the mindset that is necessary to recognize what black people go through and understand our history? Now, technically, those of you out there that are FBA or foundational black Americans, or that see yourself as black Americans who were born here of descendants of slavery, does Kamala Harris come from that lineage? Not really, because her mom is Indian, father's Jamaican, and she has Irish, and she spent a lot of time growing up in Canada as well. People forget about that. Just like Barack Obama, his mother was white, father was Kenyan. So not really technically of the lineage of someone that's a foundational black American, if that's the term that I can use. But coming back over here, I want to get into it right now and let you hear what DL had to say. Is DL just kissing the butt, or is he telling the truth based on his research? At least that's what he's saying, folks. So let's do it right now, and here we go.
That she's chosen it. I have said before, I used to repeat some of the same things ad nauseum that people are right now. Oh, she locked up a lot of black men. I lived in this state my whole life. I had an occasion to talk to her on several occasions. I accused her on this radio station, on this network, on the same things that people are doing right now. And once I did my research and research isn't finding answers that edify the perspective you have. Research means generally that you want to disprove the thing you believe.
Now, do you agree with DL here? He says that when you do research, real research is not trying to find more information to reinforce that which you believe. Is that called confirmation bias? Research is really seeing, can you find articles and information that would put to rest the thing that you believe is true? Can you find the data that can prove you wrong? Is DL right about what he's saying. Make sure you comment on this video, and thank you for watching, everybody.
That's what researchers try to disprove what they already believe to be true. And it's not trying to edify your perspective and find things. Kamala Harris did not, in fact, lock up the thousands of people that I said she did. I told that lie, and I have apologized to it.
Now, this is why DL is saying this. There's some research out there, and I'm going to show you what Reese, I'm going to put her video up in a minute. Like I said, she's a podcaster. She's got a radio program on Sirius XM radio, and she occasionally comes on the Roland Martin show, which is on YouTube, you know, his YouTube program. And she did research and said that it was really white men who worked within the structure of CDCR, which is California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, that it was white men that were in charge of most of the policies that impacted black men black men that were staying in prison. And then, of course, there was the fire program where they kept black men in prison to work in these fire camps that could have paroled. The question is, Kamala Harris, as the Attorney General of California, was that solely her doing, or was that the doing of some white guys who actually work for CDCR in the higher echelon, who made those decisions? Because CDCR is actually a separate department, a separate program that really the Attorney General of California, and I know because I live in California, doesn't really have any control over. And another reason why I know this is because of the work that I do within that department, within the department. So it's just a question, because DL, as you see right there, DL is having some reservations about the things that he said about Kamala. But once again, no matter what, I still want to hear your opinion. Everybody has a right to their own opinion and their thoughts, and I want to see these opinions and thoughts in the comment section of this video. Let's continue with DL.
Not only have I apologized, I've said to her, not only am I going to keep apologizing because I think it did that much damage, I am going to do what I can do to make sure you become the 47th. At this time, I said to her when I apologized, I'm going to make sure you get elected. I didn't say re-elected. I said elected. And now here it is, that opportunity. To me, that is divine. That is.
So now DL is saying that he wants to make sure that she gets elected. He sees it as divine. Do you think that DL is blinded by his emotional thoughts that he has wronged her in the past, and that is causing him to have reservations? But at the same time, is he overlooking policies that was under her control that impacted black men in particular? For example, let me put this up here. I just want to show this. This is about just showing and proving. But right here, let me put this up right here. How many of you, and I think a lot of people forgot about this, that Kamala Harris, as the Attorney General of California, under her leadership, I believe this was when she was the district attorney. That's right. She was the district attorney in San Francisco. The crime lab scandal rocked Kamala Harris's term as San Francisco district attorney, because what happened in that crime lab was some really horrible stuff. Like, for example, let me put this up right here. So this is what happened. San Francisco Kamala D. Harris was the city's top prosecutor, running to become California's elected attorney general, when a scandal stunned her office and threatened to upheave her whole campaign, ladies and gentlemen. One of Harris's top deputies had emailed a colleague that a crime lab technician, so it wasn't Kamala Harris personally, but it was a technician in the crime lab, that became increasingly undependable, meaning he wasn't handling the evidence right.
Tell the truth.
For testimony. Undependable for testimony. Weeks later, the technician allegedly took home cocaine from the lab and possibly tainted evidence, raising concerns about hundreds of cases. This was a big deal, everybody, because potentially black men and other men that were incarcerated within the criminal justice system in California, maybe some of this lab this tainted lab specimens from this technician, it could have freed some of these guys that were innocent of the crime that they were being accused of. And it could have potentially allowed guys that did do the crime to get free because they tainted and destroyed. He destroyed the evidence with, let me put this one up here too, as neither Harris nor the prosecutors working for her had informed the defense attorneys for these individuals that the laboratory mishandled their clients' evidence that could probably prove that they're innocent or prove that they're guilty. The attorneys' problems. They didn't tell the defense attorneys in San Francisco about these issues. Despite rules requiring such disclosure, Kamala Harris failed to disclose information that clearly shows have been disclosed, that should have been disclosed. Superior Court Judge Annie Christian wrote in a scaling decision in May 2010. At first, Harris fought back. She blamed the police for the failure to inform the defense lawyers. She estimated that only about 20 cases initially would be affected by what her crime lab did wrong. And her office accused the judge of bias because I think the judge, Annie Christian, I think it was her husband who was a defense lawyer in one of the cases. And I find that to be weird because that seems like a conflict of interest. She's married to a defense attorney, and why was his case in her court in the first place? This is weird. But I just want to lay that out because that's another situation that happened in San Francisco when Kamala Harris was the district attorney in San Francisco. And that was one of the areas that people really raked her over the coals for way back in the day, 10,000, talking about 2010. And so let's go on with DL and hear the rest of what he has to say here.
Something that's supposed to have happened. If you are the people right now who are misquoting her record, we are not the same. If you believe...
I can tell you right now, what I just read to you is not a misquote of Kamala Harris' record. That, in fact, really did happen. I just want to make sure you all know. You guys can research this for yourself, but let's continue with what DL is saying.
That her locking people up from weed is worse than a man who says he wants to give dope dealers the death penalty. We are not the same.
Let me clarify this too again right here. I know black men feel some kind of way about Harris. I know this. I'm not dumb to this, but I got to be truthful. I know because of being in the system that a lot of black men were not only being arrested for marijuana possession. There were a lot of guys, black and white and other races, that were being arrested for serious crimes and scouting against their parole, conditions of their parole, in which they were brought back to, a prison. And about 93% or maybe even more now of guys that are in the prison system in California have been convicted of legitimate crimes that were unrelated to something like cocaine, even though we know Kamala Harris said out of her own mouth that she was a smoker of marijuana or she had smoked marijuana. Therefore, it makes you say, hey, if you're a smoker of marijuana or you smoked marijuana before, why are you arresting? And now we look at marijuana now is legal in California. So that's another question. If marijuana is legal in California, then every guy that's been convicted and sent to prison on marijuana, maybe they should be released. Don't you think?
Tell the truth.
Let's get back.
If you want me to remember her past but not Trump's past, we're not the same. If you want to remind me of her record but don't want to talk about Project 2025, have you ever noticed the same black people that want to tell you she sold all this weed and locked all these people up, tell you they don't believe that 2025 is Trump's plan for a second term?
Now, let me say this about Trump. He talked about Trump. It is true. Most of the members that put that 2025 plan together, a lot of these are individuals that were in Trump's administration when he was in office. Ben Carson, who he put in charge of housing, is one of them, a matter of fact, okay? And Trump has said out of his own
Tell the
mouth
truth.
at rallies that he would like to give police immunity. And we already know that black men within this system, we are impacted. Black people are impacted by police. I'm going to say this and say this very clear to you. Black people are killed 3 times in comparison by police than white people, 3 times more. And black people are killed by police 30% more than white people at 19%, unarmed when we're unarmed. And 96% of us, in terms of our life expectancy, have a higher chance per 100,000 of being the victim of a police taking our life in comparison to 39% per 100,000 for white people. That's a fact. And Donald Trump says that he wants to give police immunity. Just something for you to think about, y'all. Let's get back to Hughley.
There is a reason for that. If you're telling me you're not going to vote for her because she has a white husband, then we're not the same. But if you're going to say she has a white husband, you better have a black wife when you say it. Don't tell me that somebody's Latin or Asian. I think that should.
Now, DL says, don't tell me that she got a white husband. Don't tell me that Kamala has a white husband if you got a white wife. I got to be honest. I think that makes sense. If you are calling her out for her choice of mate, then quite frankly, your mate should not look like her mate as well. Good point, DL, but let's go on.
The predicate anyway. But if you are accusing her marital choices, you better make sure yours are in line with the accusations you make. We are not the same if these are, well, she ain't black enough. I tell you what, she's a black woman. She went to Oakland. She's from Oakland. She went to an HBCU. She's an AKA. She had a boyfriend named Willie.
Let me just say this. The whole question about whether Kamala Harris is black enough, I've already explained it. Her heritage is Jamaican. Her mother is Indian. She also has Irish blood in her. And she has spent a lot of her time, even though he says she lived in Oakland. No, Kamala actually spent a lot of time growing up in Canada as well. Sort of like Barack Obama, right? When you talk about, once again, lineage, when you look at the black Americans or FBA, we're talking about black people who have a history in the South, those plantations in the South, Jim Crow, redlining, black people who came out of slave plantations into Reconstruction, out of Reconstruction into what we call, once again, Jim Crow. Black people were the victims of slave patrols, black people who had to, that were sharecroppers, black people who escaped from the South to get to the North. We're talking about black people who had that experience, right? Black people who sung those spiritual hymns that went to church on Sunday. We're talking about those black people that were marching with Dr. King back in the 60s for what? For civil rights. Kamala Harris' mother was able to come to this country because black people that were already here fought for those civil rights. So I'm just keeping it real. I'm keeping it real. And so your blackness, being black in America as a black person, is more than just your skin color, but it's your culture, your background, your history plays a part of it. I just want to say that, to be fair about it. You know, even though she went to Howard, that's a black school, but there's a lot of people that are non-black that go to black schools. Even though she's a member of AKA, that's true. But there's a lot of people who join black fraternities and sororities who are not necessarily black, or maybe they are biracial heritage. So let's continue here.
And she got a name, first name that's hard for everybody to pronounce. It sounds different than it's spelled. That's black enough for me. But what I do know for sure is that she can win if we decide it is so. And if that is not your goal, we are not the same. Your we and my we are not the same. Well, she, everything else. I don't care about none of that. I ain't got time to Terry. What I am trying to do is to make sure that I make good on something. I wronged this woman. I lied on her and hurt her reputation. And if you're telling me where was she at for 4 years, you idiot. She's the Vice President of the United States of America. And the Vice Presidency is a ceremonial position.
That is true. DL is right. The Vice President does not have the power that the president have. It is a ceremonial position. It's a position that it's a standby position where you get appointed jobs to do by the president. And if something happens to the president, then you stand as the president. If that president gets assassinated or something of that nature happens, you stand in for that president. So it's right. Kamala Harris is not in a position technically to create policies. She can influence Joe Biden and say, hey, do this and that. But I'm going to say it again. She's in a position to influence policy. I want to say that correct. She can influence policy by being in the ear of the president and saying, hey, this is what black people want. And I'm going to say this again. We should not give people our vote without making a demand for what we want. So even though Kamala Harris is a vice president and not president, we put both her and Joe Biden in office, they both got into office because of the black vote. And therefore, we should expect something for our vote, whether she's the vice president or whether becomes the president. And that's just the facts.
Tell the truth.
Let's continue with DL.
Tell the truth.
It's a ceremonial position. And your job as vice president is to do what the president says. You think that ain't true? Get a promotion at your job and start talking bad about your boss. See how that works out. You a vice anything, and you think you would tell the president what to do? It was a ceremonial position. She did what she was supposed to. Being mad at a vice president would be like being mad at the backup quarterback because the quarterback threw it.
No, I think, DL, you have to understand why black people feel some kind of way. We heard her on that video that she did when she talked to The Root, and she said, no, I'm not going to just do something for black people. I think those things made black people feel some kind of way. I think when she gets on Breakfast Club and shows like that, and she says things about she was watching Tupac at a time when Tupac didn't have an album, when she's saying things about I'm smoking weed, or when we see videos of her talking about I make a big old pot of greens, it almost feels like this is how some people feel. People feel that she's sort of going out of her way to pander to black people when it's necessary for her to do so, to galvanize our vote. But when you're in office, then we say, hey, where are you? And what do we get? Once again, everyone is fired up about her being the nominee potentially. But as black people are fired up, particularly black women, I must ask you, what are we getting? What are you getting for your vote, for your support of her? You must get something. This is one of the problems that black people have in politics, that we get excited, we get caught up in symbolism, and then we don't get anything at the end of the day.
Tell the truth.
For our work and hard work and for what we've done to put that person in office is really what I should be saying here. Let's continue with DL.
Interception. And you know that to be true. You are saying all these things because whatever you have on your mind, whatever your mindset is, it is not the same as mine. I don't begrudge you for how you feel, but I ain't got time to play with you. My goal is to make right something I did wrong. It is to make sure I keep my word. And I am going to do all I can to make sure that she becomes a black woman, Asian woman, AIP. I know that she's going to be, I'll tell you what, she's black enough to be called a DEI hire by inferior white men.
Now, he is right about that. Like I said before, you've had on Fox, you've had white men call her a DEI and call her a woman of color. So, yeah, there's a certain level of racism that she's going to experience, even if you don't see her as, black enough. But she's still going to see that because, she's a woman. There's people who don't want to see a woman in the White House. And then there's people who don't want to see someone who looks like they're not white. That's non-white in the White House in that position of being president of the United States. So I get what DL is saying there. But I still want people to be free to give their opinions of what they really believe and think about Kamala Harris. I think there's just a little bit more of this.
She's black enough for them to challenge her intellect. She's black enough for them to call her promiscuous and say she slept her way to the top.
Wow. All right, everybody. Man. This is it's definitely something else, y'all. I want to bring up something else. DL has exercised his demons, I guess, to apologize to her. That's how he feels. Let me know how you feel, though. But let me put this up here. Kamala Harris was tough on crime prosecutor in Black Lives Matter era. Long after the American public became aware of mass incarceration was a failed experiment, Harris failed to support progressive measures. Is that true? That she failed to support progressive measures, everybody? I want your thoughts about that. What I want to also do is I come back over here, back out of the reaction studio. Let me put this up here. This is something that I think there was a young man by the name of Jamal Truelove. And I'm familiar with this situation, and I want to put this up here right now. In 2008, Jamal Truelove was arrested in San Francisco and prosecuted by Harris' office for the murder of his friend. Okay? Now, the courts later found that police officers had framed Truelove, and he was released after 6 years in prison. Wow. Do all that time. The city agreed to pay him $13 million settlement, and former district attorney staffer told Vice that prosecutions like Truelove's would have had to be approved by Harris, Kamala Harris. But the approval process was a rubber stamp, and it was highly unlikely that she was familiar with the details. Harris has not publicly commented on Truelove's case since this time, y'all. This is back in 2008. Okay, here's another one I want to bring up here. These are not things that I'm making up on her. These are facts. These are things that really happened. Okay, now Attorney General Harris pushed for the passage of a statewide. She wanted to pass, and she did pass a statewide bill for anti-truancy, an anti-truancy bill that exported some of the thinking that California as a whole. Under that law, some parents were arrested by local law enforcement and faced harsh penalties. Okay. Now, this lady right here, Peoples, who was very publicly perk walked, you know how they say the perk walk, during a 2013 arrest in Orange County in Southern California. People said her daughter's school absences were due to hospitalization for a chronic illness. But however, Harris had defended her focus on truancy, okay, but expressed regret for how some cases were handled after the passage of the statewide law. So there were some people who, some parents who were definitely not doing right by making sure that their kids were in school, but there were some parents who obviously had some issues for why their kids were not in school, like a sickness or something in the hospital. And Kamala Harris admitted that there were some issues, but this is why I think there's a lot of people in California, or people in general, who have their reservations about Kamala Harris, as much as you have people that are cheering for her right now and giving her money for her campaign. We just got to be balanced and understand that, okay? Now, another area that I want to go into, and I talked about this, I talked about the laboratory situation with her laboratory that was under her leadership and jurisdiction. But now let's talk about Amanda Seales. Okay, Amanda Seales has had some things to say. Now, this woman has been on social media, says a lot of controversial things, and has a lot to say about Kamala Harris. And I don't think she's a big fan of Kamala Harris. I think she said she's actually met with her and has talked to her. And she says she's told her straight up that you're not really being real with us. And let's hear what Amanda Seales has to say about this situation. She can be very polarizing. She speaks her mind. Let's go ahead and hear what she has to say. Let's get into the reaction studio right now, y'all. And here she go. And here we go.
Put in clips of Kamala Harris stating things. I don't need politicians to state things. I need politicians to do things.
Now, I agree with her. We need politicians to do shit, not just talk about shit. She's absolutely right there. No matter what you think about Amanda Seales, she is on point with this statement here.
I need politicians to do things. When I met with Kamala Harris after she summoned me, I said to her straight up, you talk out two sides of your neck and we don't know what you're talking about. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Kamala Harris who's trying to shut me the fuck up. Because I told her straight up that I feel like she is disingenuous in her messaging. And she said to me, well, you're being too critical. And I said, I am a voter. I'm supposed to be critical. That's my job.
Amanda Seales is 110%.
Tell the truth.
Your job is to hold these politicians to the fire because we don't work for them. They work for us. And that's a fact, y'all.
Tell the truth.
That's a damn double, and I mean double truth.
Somebody gonna have to tell the truth, and I'm gonna tell it.
Let's get back.
And I want to see actions. She said, well, how am I supposed to talk about racism in America without calling Americans racist? I said, well, first of all, there are many racist Americans, but there's also policy, legislation, institution, and systems that are racist that need to be addressed.
True.
They need to be addressed.
Tell the truth.
You are listening to information.
And if you're not going to do that in an actualized way and in a loud, bold way, people will never really know where you're coming from. Well, you can't tell me how I feel. So I'm not telling you how you feel. I'm telling you how you sound. I'm telling you how you sound. Okay? The truth is that you should always question your source and what are their intentions.
Yeah, that's true.
And what you all need to know is that I don't need to do any of this. I don't need to talk about any of this.
Wow.
Information is power.
Boom. So there it is, folks. Let me know what your thoughts are about Amanda Seales. Did you agree with her or did you disagree? Excuse me. Do you agree with her or do you disagree with her position as it relates to Kamala Harris? Make sure you share this video on all your social media. Let people know about the channel. If you're a content creator, put this video in your community tab, but definitely share this video if you're watching. Share it in your Facebook, share it in your Twitter or your X, whatever you have. I definitely would appreciate it, and I appreciate you for watching this program today. Now, let's go ahead and hear from Reese. I had mentioned this young lady before. She's been on Roland Martin. She's on Sirius XM Radio. She has her own podcast, I believe, own YouTube channel, and she's going to break some things down that people may or may not know as it relates to the prison system in California. Is Kamala Harris the main blame for particularly black men being incarcerated in California for quite some time? Is she the main person? Because I know a lot of black men feel some kind of way about her. And I just want to know what your thoughts are when you hear what Reese is about to put down here, and let me know if you in the comment section agree or disagree once more. So check this out.
Let me set the record straight. Kamala Harris was never over the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. She was the Attorney General of the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice does not oversee the CDCR. The CDCR is overseen by the Secretary of the CDCR, which is part of the governor's cabinet. During Kamala Harris's tenure, there were 3 secretaries of the CDCR appointed by then Governor Jerry Brown: Matthew Cate, Dr. Jeffrey Beard, Steve Kernan. Those are the 3 white men.
You see right there? So she's saying it was really 3 white men, and I'm familiar with these guys, who were in charge at that time of setting the policies. It wasn't Kamala Harris. And as I'm going to say again, the Department of Corrections is almost like under its own separate, jurisdiction, its own separate entity with so many different layers of bureaucracy and different people that take lead. It was really the CDC secretary, former secretary that she's talking about right up there.
That responsible for all the things that you want to lay at the feet of her. Oh, people were kept past their prison sentences. Not true. What is true is that the CDCR was under federal court supervision. That had nothing to do with Kamala Harris. That had to do with the fact that prisons were overcrowded and there was a Public Safety Realignment Act that.
Right. I know for a fact that prisons in California are very overcrowded, and the feds come in. You have what you call receivership. A receiver comes in and he can override the state leadership and say, you will do A, B, and C. All right. The federal government came in and set certain guidelines. That supersedes a attorney general of a state. This is facts, facts over feelings. And this is true. I know this for a fact because of my work experience and in this particular arena of corrections in California.
They needed to come into compliance with. There were various issues with coming into compliance because there was no capacity in other facilities throughout the state. There were also concerns about releasing violent offenders. There's this completely false notion that everybody is in jail for weed in California, when the reality is 93% of prisoners in California are there because they're either there for a violent crime or because they have a history of committing violent crimes. So when the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation needed somebody to represent them, they can't call up Johnny Cochran. They had to be represented by the Department of Justice. The Deputy Attorney General represented the interests of their client. And so if you have an issue with what was represented in court, then what you really have an issue with is the position of the Secretary of the CDCR. So go talk to Matt, go talk to Jeff, or go talk to Steve and keep Kamala's name out of it.
There it is, everybody. There it is. Let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are about what you just heard there, what your thoughts are about DL, what your thoughts are about Kamala Harris, good or bad. It's your opinion to give your thoughts. Are you going to vote this upcoming election? You don't have to tell me who you're going to vote for because that's your business, but do you plan to vote, or are you going to sit on the couch? And everybody out there, y'all take care. I appreciate you. Once again, before I get out of here, I want to say thank you for watching this video wherever you are in the world. Like and make a comment, please. Subscribe to the channel, and please share the video on all your social media. And we're building something over here. I appreciate you all.
Tell the truth.
So with that said, everybody, y'all take care. This is Info Media Reacts, y'all. Take care. Peace.